Well, hello and welcome to my live stream. I know it feels like I haven't been on here for ages. I know today was a public holiday in Melbourne, where I live. Yes, we have a public holiday over a horse race. And hey, because I don't gamble, but one of the fast food restaurants that I have I have a card to, that you accrue points. So click on this email, you'll get assigned a horse, and if your horse wins, you'll get free Coke and chips. Well, apparently the horse won. So things are really, really amazing. Things are going from strength to strength to strength in my life. I just need to find some love. Can anybody find me somebody to love? Anyway, I digress. We're here. We've got a bit to talk about today. We want to talk about Dim Tim or Tim Smith. We want to talk about, there's been some developments in the Cleo Smith mystery. We want to look at ICAC because I didn't stream yesterday. Gladys fronted ICAC, and there was some really interesting things. And Twitter's been very vocal about it. Want to look at Friendlyjordies? You love it? Thank you, Cal. Well, I'm glad somebody does. Because the person that dumped me got dumped by their ex, but is still trying to get their ex to fall in love with them. And I essentially said that you cannot make somebody fall in love with you. You can't. Doesn't matter how much you try. You can't make somebody fall in love with you. So anyway, so that ship has sailed. So anyway, so things are going really, really well. I'm still negotiating night shift. That's killing me at the moment. It's funny because I have an exam on Thursday. I go to sleep. I get home at 5 Thursday morning. I got to actually wake up to sit my exam and then go back to bed. So that's going to be fun on Thursday. Anyway, so I hope you're all doing really well. I'm not talking about our favorite YouTuber today because not really worth talking about. Cleaning the night shift on Halloween. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. So, but apparently the whole thing was I was too intense for the guy. He couldn't handle me. I'm too much to handle. In fact, when I first met him, I said to him, I'm going to warn you now. I said, most people can't handle me because I'm too intense. He was warned. So anyway, I am intense. And I speak my mind. And I know that scares a lot of men as well. I just go, no. Anyway. So it is believed that Tim Smith, the politician that crashed his car the other day, has been told he needs to quit politics. Now, the question is when it's going to happen. But the Victorian Liberal leader came out today so here's the opposition leader. Victorian Liberal leader Matthew Guy tells Tim Smith not to contest the next driving crash. He's told him to nick off. So Victorian Liberal leader Matthew Guy has told backbencher Tim Smith, because he's now a backbencher, not to contest contest next year's state election after Mr. Smith crashed his car while more than twice over the legal limit. Mr. Guy said he met with Mr. Smith on Monday and made it very clear to Tim that he wouldn't find his way onto the front bench of any parliamentary Liberal Party that I lead. And I made it clear I didn't want him to nominate at the next election and that I didn't believe he should nominate for the seat of Kew. Tim has and will reflect on my advice to him, and he will make a statement in his own time. I hope sooner rather than later. Mr. Guy said he expected Mr. Smith to face the media in a press conference tomorrow to answer questions about his future, but noted he was very distressed. I think he's exceedingly remorseful. You know, this has potentially cost him his career, and you would expect anyone in that position to be not just remorseful, but certainly very sorry for what has occurred. Mr. Guy said it had been very difficult as Mr. Smith was a friend of mine, not just a colleague, but I'm sorry, this is the right decision. And don't forget, it was Dim Tim that helped get Matthew Guy the Liberal leadership as well. That was why Dim Tim became the opposition Attorney General, because of the fact that he helped Mr. Family Guy get the Liberal leadership back. But I'm sorry, this is the right decision, the right way for the sake of the people of Victoria, and that's more important. But Mr. Guy did not believe the QMP needed to resign before the next election and trigger the cost to taxpayers of a by-election. He said his handling of the issue was consistent with his approach as leader in 2018 when Upper House Liberal Simon Ramsey was caught drink driving. Then Mr. Guy also had a face-to-face conversation in the days after the incident before Mr. Ramsey made the decision not to contest the next election. So to recap the story, on Sunday, he resigned from the Shadow Cabinet and apologised after failing a blood alcohol test, calling that a serious error of judgment. They confirmed they responded. Collided with another vehicle on Power Street in Hawthorne before crashing into a fence at 8:55 p.m. In a statement, Mr. Smith said he believed he was under the legal limit to drive home with friends, but this was not the case. I still don't know how you can be twice over the limit and think that you're okay to drive. I was breath tested and returned a positive reading. He returned an evidentiary breath test of 0.131. And where were all his friends? Mr. Smith was appointed to the role of Shadow Attorney General in September after Mr. Guy was reinstalled as Victorian Liberal leader. Mr. Smith moved the spill motion that led to Mr. Guy reclaiming the party's leadership from Michael O'Brien. So, yes, Dim Tim was instrumental in Matthew Guy getting the Liberal leadership back. This morning, former Liberal Premier Ted Ballieu said Smith had become a liability for the Liberal Party. It's a very spectacular implosion for somebody who, let's say, has been a controversial figure on the coalition side of politics, he told ABC Radio. I think sometimes it hasn't been helpful to the team, but he has imploded. Fortunately, he hasn't hurt anybody, but I think his reputation is very much shattered. He's someone who played hard on the front, and it's come full circle. Victorian Government Minister Martin Pakula said the member for Kew had been quick to condemn others for their indiscretions. In 2019, Mr. Smith called for Labor MP Wills Fowles' resignation after Mr. Fowles kicked in a hotel door during an alcohol-fueled incident in Canberra. Sometimes it's better to be judicious with your comments about other people, Mr. Pakula said. Wow. So if you're going to start setting those kinds of standards for others, you really don't have much of a cause for complaint when other people try to impose those standards on you. He has a lot of issues he needs to confront. Reflecting on his own experience, Mr. Ramsey said Mr. Smith was young and would be able to bounce back to some kind of career down the track. But it's all about fronting up and taking responsibility for your actions, then learning from that experience and allowing life to take you forward, he told ABC Radio. So The Age is reporting that this is 8:18 p.m. first published at 10:47. So this is the most recent update, and it's saying that he's not going to resign. So it says Tim Smith defies Liberal leaders, called to quit Parliament after crash. Embattled Liberal MP Tim Smith is refusing to quit state Parliament, defying opposition leader Matthew Guy, who declared the member for Kew should not recontest next year's election. So Mr. Smith, who crashed his 5-week-old Jaguar, 5-week-old Jag. Guess what? It's not covered by insurance because he's been driving before ploughing into a fence. He's obviously earning too much money. Ploughing into the fence outside an 8-year-old child's bedroom while driving more than 2.5 times, this one says over the legal limit, has told several senior Liberal sources he believed he could weather the political storm and remain in Parliament. Whoopsies. He told colleagues he had the support of senior federal Liberals and was calling branch members in queues seeking support for pre-selection. So the former State Shadow Attorney General has been bunkering down at his parents' holiday house in Blairgowie since the crash in Hawthorne on Saturday night. 2 Liberal sources confirmed he was dining with a high-profile QC the night of the crash. On Tuesday night, Mr. Smith continued to defy Mr. Guy in favour of federal MPs. If it continues, his resistance could ignite a factional dispute in the Liberal Party that could force colleagues to put forward a motion to remove him from the Liberal caucus and force him to sit on the backbench as an independent. So we could actually have the whole Liberal Party in Victoria implode. Several Liberal sources said the party's powerful administrative committee may reject Mr. Smith's application for a pre-selection if he were to contest. Mr. Guy stared down the internal pressure from Liberal heavyweights to protect Mr. Smith, and on Tuesday afternoon told journalists he had driven to Mornington Peninsula to tell the QMP about his unequivocal position that he should not contest the 2022 election. I made it very clear to Tim that he wouldn't find his way onto the front bench of any parliamentary Liberal Party I lead, and I made it clear I didn't want him to nominate at the next election and that I didn't believe he should nominate for the seat of Kew. So Tim has, and will reflect on my advice, it says Upper House MP Matthew Batch, I don't know, was appointed Shadow Attorney General on Sunday, has been touted as the most likely candidate to win pre-selection for the seat of Kew. Look at his car. That's his car. Look at that. Liberal sources have said Dr. Batch's move to the lower house will pave the way for the Liberal Party to pre-select a female candidate to replace him in the Legislative Council for the Eastern Metropolitan Region. He was the senior advisor to former Liberal Minister Mary Woodridge, who was challenged by Mr. Smith in a bloody pre-selection battle for Kew in 2014. Mr. Guy, who vowed in September to promote more women into Liberal ranks, did not name his preferred candidate, but said there's always places to start when asked if a woman should be pre-selected in a safe seat. The opposition leader said he expected Mr. Smith to remain in Victorian Parliament for the next 12 months, avoiding a $3 million by-election. I think enough damage has been done. The controversial Kew MP, who Mr. Guy said on that, who could have one day been Premier, oh, heaven help us all. Heaven help us if Tim became Premier. Could front the media as early as Wednesday to announce his decision. The opposition leader privately told colleagues he believed Mr. Smith would make the right decision and resign, but it could take a few days. Tim can have those conversations. I expect to come and talk to all of you journalists. That's the right thing to do. You are representing the people of Victoria, providing information to them, said Mr. Guy. And he understands that. He understands that entirely. I hope that will be sooner rather than later. I hope that will be Wednesday. Mr. Guy said he did not have an indication as to what Mr. Smith may decide to do, but Liberal sources told The Age the 38-year-old was thinking about nominating for pre-selection, which will close on November 12th after being told by federal MPs to fight it out. Of course the feds are going to tell him to fight it out. Mr. Smith was upbeat and confident in his conversations with colleagues, telling them the feds are backing me, according to Liberal sources. He's delusional, one Liberal front bencher said. Another Liberal said if the federal Liberals want Tim Smith, then the state Liberals definitely don't want him. Tim just hasn't grown out of his Scotch college dormitory. The feud over Mr. Smith's political future has caused tensions between Mr. Guy and Federal Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, a close ally of the QMP, threatening to spark further instability for Mr. Guy's leadership. Look at the car there. Mr. Smith is the friend of the opposition of the state opposition leader and was instrumental in his return to leadership. He moved this bill against Michael O'Brien in the Liberal Party room 2 months ago. Several colleagues have encouraged the former Shadow Attorney General to leave Australia after the election and head to Britain, where he studied briefly, with several politicians, including Sir David Amherst, who was recently killed by a terror attack. Yes, let's send him to the UK. The people in the UK can have him. Deputy Liberal leader David Southwick said Mr. Guy made the right decision in calling for Mr. Smith's resignation from Parliament. This was a tough call, and Matthew was showing leadership in doing that. Matthew was showing no favours here, and that should take a lot of credit. We haven't seen that level of consistency in this Parliament for a long time from other leaders, and I think Matthew has done that. So then we've got about Mr. Bailey. Jeff Kennett, a close ally of Mr. Smith, declined to comment. But senior sources have confirmed he was encouraging Mr. Smith to resign. Former Liberal Premier Dennis Napline said Mr. Guy's decision had cemented his position as a strong leader and suggested Mr. Smith would be well advised to follow Matthew's advice. Senior Andrews Government Minister Martin Peluca said Mr. Smith was not in a position to complain about his treatment, having previously acted as an attack dog for the opposition and frequently called for resignations. Sometimes it's better to be a bit judicious with your comments about other people. If you're going to start setting those kind of standards for others, you really don't have much cause for complaint when other people try to impose those standards on you. So it's interesting that he looks like he's going to dig his heels in and see what happens. So do you think they could kick him out? Do you reckon they'd kick him out of the Liberal Party, or do you think that it's all just smoke and mirrors? What do you reckon? So, oh, well, I guess you break the law, he has no right to be in politics, says the Fox. I sort of tend to, I mean, it's one thing to be slightly over the limit, but to be as drunk as he was and behind a vehicle was dangerous. It depends on dirt. Well, yeah, that's right. Well, and the fact he's got Josh Frydenberg in his corner sort of, bothers me as well. But I mean, Joshy, as far as I'm concerned, should lose his seat too. So, who knew when we started calling him Dim Tim that it was actually going to come? He was going to live up to the name, because you have to be dim to do what he did. Well, that's right. I mean, fortunately, he didn't kill anyone. But anybody else, if it was anybody else in any other industry, so you imagine let's just say it was a police officer, they'd be sacked, or, another government department, somebody in another government department, they would have the full weight of the law coming down on them. And yet, because he's a politician, he should be given a pat on the back and, well done, Timmy. Well done, Timmy. Yeah, not buying it. So let's look at have a look at ICAC. So yesterday Gladys spoke. She spoke, and today, cool. Well, yes, he should have to interlock any vehicle he uses. So yesterday, Gladys had to front ICAC, and she did not get an easy time. So she has vowed to get on with her life after giving evidence at the corruption inquiry. So she addressed the media after she finished giving evidence. She reiterated that every decision she ever made was in the public interest, and said the inquiry had been difficult for her. I intend to get on with my life, and I thank everybody for support. It's been my honour and privilege to serve you in my role for public life. She denied lying to her chief of staff about her relationship with Mr. Maguire being... Yes, I know. I saw that Channel 7 actually had the whole hour. I mean, I'd love to break it down, but we don't have enough time. So we're just going to watch this 3 minutes here. This is 3 minutes and 24 seconds. So she's well, I don't know how, I think he's going to have to be chauffeured, but I don't want my taxpayers' money paid for Dim Tim.
The evidence of the 13th of July 2018 at least led you to question what Mr. Maguire had been telling you, for example, on the long telephone call of the 5th of July.
Absolutely. I questioned everything. I questioned anything that I may have known. I questioned everything. That was, I can't express what a shock it was to the system, because you have a certain view of somebody and that view is then questioned. Was enormously shocking, and I thought long and hard about everything. I thought long and hard for a number of days about what he'd said and what he'd said to me and what had occurred, and that for me was a very, very difficult period, and I was trying to rationalise what had occurred at the hearing, his protestations of presumption of innocence, and what my responsibilities were.
You came to the view by the weekend immediately after his evidence that Mr. Maguire had let down his constituents, the people of New South Wales and the New South Wales Liberal Party. Correct?
I did. I put that in the statement.
She questioned everything except apart from the 1.5. Yeah, that's right.
In the face of all of that, did you suspect that Mr. Maguire may have been engaged in corrupt conduct?
I didn't.
Why not?
Because I assumed that anything he was caught up in was something that on his part was unintentional.
You know what happens when you assume, don't you?
That he wasn't aware of everything going on around him, and I also assumed that the investigation of Dasha would come to a conclusion as to whether or not he'd engaged in corrupt conduct. But certainly, in my experience, in what I've known of him, I didn't put it past him that he was caught up in something that...
What? Did she just say she didn't put past it that he was caught up in something? Wait on. Let's have a listen.
In my experience, in what I've known of him, I didn't put it past him that he was caught up in something that perhaps he wasn't totally aware of, and that's probably the extent to which my concerns went. But I certainly never suspected him of being corrupt.
As at the 13th of July 2018, you at least assumed that Mr. Maguire had been lying to you by the following.
Do I believe her? I'm having a lot of trouble believing her. What do you reckon, Plan to Create? I still think she knows more than what she says. I mean, look at her body language. The fox. Look at Gladys's body language.
Following Sunday, you come to the conclusion that he'd let down his constituents, the people of New South Wales and the New South Wales Liberal Party. In the face of that, surely you at least suspected that Mr. Maguire may have been engaged in corrupt conduct, even though at that point in time you may well not have known.
No, I didn't. I assumed he'd been caught up in something. I didn't know the extent of it, but I didn't assume corruption on his part, because that's not the person I knew.
Hang on, you just said before that you wouldn't put it past him. You think he screwed her over? Possibly. Well, I mean, the thing is, love is blind. I mean, let's face it, you know. Oh, wow. It's a monthly thing. You get them recalibrated every month. Wow, Cal.
But in terms of public office, in public life, it wasn't just the facts of what we were dealing with in the investigation that was underway, but it was also the perception of what he may have been caught up in, at the very least.
And let's face it, the guy doing the questioning's like, he's like lost interest because he's drinking his water. I hope it's water.
If there's a cloud of that nature, one would be expected to sit on the crossbench to relieve themselves of their responsibilities until the matter came to a conclusion. And that was certainly my expectation of Mr. Maguire, that until this cloud, which had been exposed on the 13th of July, would come to a conclusion that he should avail himself of the party room, of his responsibilities, and sit on the cross bench until the matter was determined by this agency and determined as to whether or not there was a case to be answered.
Oh, look. So her chief of staff last week told ICAC she clearly remembered a phone call where Berejiklian said her connections to Mr. Maguire ended before she took the state job. That's my recollection. That's not what I remember Miss Berejiklian said on Monday. So Berejiklian's she's disagreed with the chief of staff. So I was going to say he's got a poker face. You've got no idea. You've got no idea what Scott Robertson's saying, thinking, do you? I remember telling her how close we were the time we'd spent together. Under questioning, Miss Berejiklian agreed news of the relationship would have been politically explosive, but she claimed whether the on-again, off-again liaison was ongoing while she was Premier was irrelevant. I don't think that would have made a difference whatsoever. I think it would have. Counsel assisting the inquiry, Scott Robertson, repeatedly quizzed Miss Berejiklian on the exact time frame of her relationship with Mr. Maguire before applying to enter a temporary closed session to further explore this matter with the witness. I wish to do it by reference to some material available to me, which in my respectful submission is more appropriately dealt with in private than in public. So they actually closed part of the hearing to get this information. So there's still a lot we don't know. So she believed that Mr. Maguire's request to use her private phone or encrypted apps reflected a concern for privacy. They heard Mr. Maguire tell Miss Berejiklian he received the summons before ICAC in 2018. But between that time, he informed her of the summons and his appearance before the commission. Mr. Maguire sent Miss Berejiklian a link to the app WeChat. You need to get a private phone, he added in intercepted text messages. She asked if everything was okay. And Mr. Maguire made a mysterious statement about having more info and data than them. I wouldn't have taken it as any more than privacy issues, she said. She repeatedly insisted she trusted Mr. Maguire when he told her he'd done nothing wrong, and she certainly knew she had done nothing wrong herself. So let's have a look at this one.
Can you at least sit back and reflect and say, well, there are concerns within government about this particular individual. Shouldn't I at least provide what information I have concerning Mr. Maguire?
Well, I obviously didn't have any information to report. And whoever commend and congratulate the person who provided this information, but clearly they had something specific.
Now she's facing a different, she's actually now facing the camera. If you noticed before, she wasn't facing the camera, she was side on. She's now facing the camera. Oh, we're body language experts, yay!
And again, I just return to the fact that this was about Dasher. I didn't know specifically what it was about. It may have involved other parties as well. And my reflection on my responsibilities and obligations didn't commence on the 25th of July, as this briefing note says. It commenced on the 13th. That's when I gave it serious thought. Do I know anything? Is there anything I need to report? That went through my head on the 13th, and I came to the conclusion that I did not.
It was clear to you, wasn't it, as at the 25th of July 2018, that information concerning Mr. Maguire might be of some assistance or relevance to this commission?
Somebody felt that they had information to do that, and that's on them. But I didn't know what.
Did she just like? She said clearly someone thought they had information. That's on them. Really? Is she saying that? She's really
had information to do that, and that's on them. But I didn't know what that information was.
You might not know what information they had, but you knew that you had information that might be of assistance to this commission.
No, I did not. And if I did, as I said previously, I would have reported it.
Yeah, then what was your decision to not make any report on or about the 25th of July 2018 on your own behalf? Was that affected by any concern on your part as to the potential political consequences to you in the event that you made a report and that your relationship with Mr. Maguire became public?
Absolutely not. I would have if there was any suspicion suspicion of corruption, any information I thought I could pass on to this body, of course I would have done that.
Was it affected by your personal feelings for Mr. Maguire?
No.
Was it affected?
Oh, the way that she said that. No. Hey, I know what can happen when you're in love with somebody. You make up lots of excuses for people's behaviour. Yeah, she does get defensive, doesn't she? Yeah, like, well.
Personal feelings for Mr. Maguire?
No. Gosh.
And was it affected by any other aspect of your relationship with Mr. Maguire?
No.
So Mr. Maguire also wrote, they can read text, but not the little green man. It leaves no tracks. Asked whether the green man may have been a reference to the green WeChat icon, Miss Berejiklian said she was unsure and never used the app. During the 52-minute phone call in which he told her of her summons, Mr. Maguire also referenced property developers and making introductions. Miss Berejiklian insisted she had no knowledge of his dealings. That's what I was told. Doesn't mean that I absorbed, cared, or assumed or knew anything else. He made admissions about being involved in a money-making exercise linked to Canterbury Council during the 2018 evidence. She said she was mortified and shocked because it was not, in my opinion at the time, within his character. The shock of what happened made me question everything. Well, she's not now. She's dating an ICAC lawyer now, isn't she? But Miss Berejiklian said while she suspected something was awry with Mr. Maguire may have lied to her, she did not suspect corrupt conduct and assumed he was unintentionally caught up in something. This was despite her warning to him during the earlier tapped phone call against associating with dodgy people. If she's warning him about associating with dodgy people, why would you say that if you didn't think they were associating with dodgy people? He told me there was nothing to worry about and it was almost a mistake, and he'd been caught in something unawares as opposed to having a close association with them. Mr. Maguire was under a cloud, she said, but she did not join the dots with previous information he had told her about a Badgery Creek's land deal. Was the fact that you didn't make a report about Mr. Maguire influenced by the feelings you had at the time? No, because I sacked him. It was based on the fact I didn't feel I knew anything. I didn't know the details. I didn't know anything. I didn't suspect him of corruption. Under cross-examination by her own barrister, Sophie Kellen SC, Mrs. Berejiklian told the ICAC members of Parliament contacted her with problems to be fixed all too frequently and contacted her in a myriad of ways. That was my style of leadership, she said. Oh, Brett Walker. Guess who he helped? Guess who he was dealing with? When Sue Chrysanthou when it was deemed that Sue Chrysanthou had a conflict of interest in the ABC defamation case, Brett Walker actually was the lawyer that took over the case, the Porter's case. So there's a link with. I'm starting to see a pattern here. I don't know anything about this one, but Brett Walker, yeah, he actually had to represent Porter against the ABC issue because it was deemed that Chrysanthou had a conflict of interest. And we know that Chrysanthou is Brazz's lawyer. They're all linked. Members of my team, of the government, and even other members of Parliament knew I was accessible and there to support them in issues they wanted to progress for the electorates. Miss Callan then put to Miss Berejiklian one of the Commissioner's central questions for consideration that as Treasurer and then Premier, she had a private interest, namely her personal close relationship, which objectively had the potential to influence the performance of her public duties. I completely rejected that suggestion, she replied. She said the relationship was always separate to her public responsibilities. What I felt for him was completely separate to what I did in terms of executing my responsibilities, and I stand by that ever so strongly. Miss Cullen asks, did you feel your emotional attachment to him influenced the performance of your public duties? Not at all, she said. The public hearings are now adjourned to a date to be fixed. All parties will have opportunity to make submissions before the ICAC begins to finalise a report and findings. Wow. So, what do you reckon? Let's have a look at this one. So, she was... So remember, she was really, really against... I remember, so she spoke to Don Parate to get the money put into the budget. I mean, the fact that she said that Don Parate does everything that he wants her to do, he did whatever she said, is pretty... doesn't look very good on him. So there was still one matter that needed to be dealt with. That was dealt with privately today. So this is the summary. So they've been released from their ICAC summons. So there was one more matter that needed to be dealt with from the private hearing, but the public part of it's now adjourned. After receiving written submissions from all legal representatives, Assistant Commissioner Ruth McCall will prepare her investigation report. That may include a finding of corrupt conduct, recommendations that charges be laid, or recommendations about how to prevent further corrupt conduct. The report will be made public and will tell us whether the watchdog believes Berejiklian breached public trust by having a conflict of interest relating to grant funding and failing to report Mr. Maguire for suspected conduct. So let's put it to the smart people of YouTube. Is Berejiklian guilty of corruption? Put 1, yes, guilty corruption. 2, not guilty of corruption. 3, she was used by a man. 1, 2, or 3. So 1, corrupt. 2, not corrupt. 3, she was used. Oh, wow, look at all the ones. So we've already solved it. We've solved it. Yeah, cool. 3 also. Look. Three. I do think 3 does have a part to play. I think there had to have been a part where Maguire saw that he he could use Berejiklian. But I mean, at the end of the day, love is blind and love is stupid, eh? But anyway, I think, yeah. You don't think Gladys is that smart? Okay. Bruce says it's a 1. Yeah. All right. So let's go on to it more fun. So I did a video earlier today about the update with Friendlyjordies. So it looks like mediation. It says it was partly mediated. I don't know. It doesn't say what part was mediated. It doesn't say what's happened. Hello, Bo. And we know that the Department of Premier and Cabinet and some other government departments 3, and she turned a blind eye, and then he got caught and she sacked him. Yes. She was just following health advice. That's true. So we know that there's been summons, so that as we said, so we're just going to wait for the summons. But there has been some more questioning about Friendlyjordies. And so Friendlyjordies released the video today. So let's have a watch of it. I actually haven't seen it, so you're going to get my first reaction. So it says broadcast source from the budget estimate, supplementary hearings, Attorney General and Prevention of Domestic and Sexual Violence, Monday, 1st of November, 9:30 to 1 p.m. So there is going to be questions related to the targeting of Friendlyjordies, because it would seem that a lot of the politicians, that the Greens and the Independents and the Labor Party are really pushing and believe that this is a sort of an abuse of power. So let's have a look. So this is, the video was juicy. Cool, Rufus. So I said I haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to get my recordings all finalized. So I've been recording and mixing and mastering today. So yeah.
Just to let you know, no, I haven't been replaced with a live stream of very specific places in New South Wales that have next to zero natural lighting in them, of people that you probably don't recognise saying, do you recall the Insurance March of 2018 saying this particular sentence? No, I don't recall that. Yeah,
so that there was another video that was out regarding the police minister and the police commissioner. That was very interesting, because neither of them seemed to know what was going on either, which was, and it's when the police commissioner and the police minister can't explain their own policies. Yeah, you got a problem.
Don't recall that. No. What about this? Let me take that on notice. But
so just to show you, go back a bit. Hang on.
So only.
So this here. It says the Honourable David Elliott. He's the police commissioner, and this is Mick Fuller. This is the police minister. David Elliott is the police minister. Mick Fuller, Commissioner Mick Fuller, Michael Fuller, is the police commissioner. He is also, this guy is also the neighbour of the Prime Minister. Okay, so there's a trigger warning for DV victims. Okay. Please be aware of that. Thank you, Rufus. I wouldn't have known. So just so this is the politician responsible for the police. This is the police commissioner. And the neighbour of Scomo.
No, what about this? Let me take that on notice. But we will be getting back to original content very soon. We just thought that it's important for you to watch Searle Onion yet again, part 2. And we'll be back to actual videos probably on Friday. Actually, we've got something very juicy coming out then, so stay tuned. That was pretty much the entire point of me being here, just for that little tiny sizzle.
So he's got juicy ones. DV, domestic violence. Cal.
Do we have a video coming out on Wednesday?
I don't recall.
I'll take that off.
Can't recall. All right, here we go. So we've got, this is David Shoebridge, the Greens member. This is what I don't know. This, I know that this is his surname Searle, and he's the Labor member, and I don't know who this is. It's a real shame when I know New South Wales politics, eh?
So I'd like to ask you some questions about the prosecution of Mr. Christo Lanka, the producer of the Friendlyjordies YouTube program. Are you familiar with that matter?
I have no involvement in it. I'm only familiar to the extent that I have read and seen newspaper articles and media articles.
So again, the New South Wales Attorney General, who needs to make sure the government keeps all the legislation is like the top law officer of the government. So
it's only because the application to shut it all down failed. So that's good news. Yeah, we'll come to that. In that matter, there was an application by the police to suppress Mr. Lanka's. Mr. Lanker's the actual presenter of the program, Mr. Jordan Shanks, from continuing to make video product about this. And in looking at the application was put on various bases. One of them was that Mr. Lanker and Mr. Shanks, quote, held a negative agenda against the complainant, Mr. John Barilaro, the Deputy Premier. They've created and aired numerous videos that are derogatory in relation to the complainant's political position.
But he doesn't have a political position now. He's a nobody. Let's bear that in mind. You know what? That's going to be very interesting to see how Chrysanthemum's going to play that up in the court case. You know,
quotes in support. Looking at the views on the YouTube channel, quote, just when you thought they couldn't be more corrupt, quote, whoever guessed Australia would openly tolerate crooked cops and crooked politicians. And at the end, there's an assertion that, quote, it's clear from this broadcast that his comments are not designed to be a critique or for entertainment, they're deliberately designed to cause public bias, unquote. So most of the grounds put by the police in favour of the suppression order appeared to be political in nature rather than based on concerns about the administration of justice. Do you, as the first law officer, have concerns about the resources of the state being deployed against journalists?
Now that's interesting. The first law officer. Here we go.
That was a matter for police when they make those applications. They are independent of my office. I haven't had any. I don't think I've had any discussions with any of my colleagues or agencies about the matter, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on the specifics of that matter when it's still before the court.
Sure, let's move away from the specifics of that matter. Let's just look at the use of suppression orders to.
Well, so how's that for fence sitting? I understand that the matter's still before the court, but surely government's been made to look like a fool. He's been like, if I was the Attorney General, I wouldn't want my government being looked like an idiot. I'd be out for blood myself.
Sort of, shut down dissent against the government in this sort of way. Is that the sort of thing that people should be concerned about in democracy? I mean, leaving aside however this particular matter ends up, and of course in this matter the magistrate, I think, dismissed that, or I think the police withdrew it and it was dismissed. So it doesn't sound like it had a very strong basis. Should there be a sort of a higher threshold before such applications?
Well, I can't answer that question directly without getting into the merits of whatever application was made as to whether the application was or was not on reasonable grounds. I mean, as a general proposition, open justice is a cornerstone of our legal system.
In fact, there's even a Law Reform Commission discussion paper about this.
That's right, and the Law Reform Commission is due to report on that probably by the end of the year. And in either of these matters, you weigh up, on the one hand, the public's interest in open justice, confidence in the justice system, and there's transparency and openness, but on the other hand, on occasions there'll be an appropriate basis to suppress evidence if there's a national security issue, if there is as we do with vulnerable witnesses, the identities of vulnerable witnesses, child of youth offenders, and so I can't comment on what is the appropriate balance in that case without descending into the merits of that case, which I don't think it's appropriate to do while the matter's before the court.
Okay, the criminal prosecution's before the court, but the court has finalised its decision with relation to the suppression.
He's right. The criminal prosecution part of it's done. However, the part about the suppression order, the judge was very scathing. We know that.
Application. Now, on this matter, the police have told this estimates hearing on Friday that they didn't get independent legal advice after the application was made.
They admitted to that, not getting independent legal advice. How idiotic are they? Why wouldn't they have sought the independent legal advice to find out whether they were going to waste taxpayers' money or not?
But but they did subsequently get advice. I think it was from the Crown Solicitor's Office, and the advice they received was that it was, this is my summation of their evidence, but essentially that it was unmeritorious or unlikely to succeed. Should the police be required in these sorts of matters to get independent legal advice before they make an application to the court?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that so loud.
This was not about someone's physical safety. This is a prosecution of a journalist making political criticisms of the government and of one of the government's leading figures at the time. So there's no sort of sense of anyone's personal safety at risk.
Look, I know you want to divorce this issue from the criminal prosecution. I think it's difficult though to make a comment on that without potentially trespassing to that. Is it prudent to get independent legal advice? It's always prudent to get independent legal advice if you're taking matters to court. But what legal advice the police obtained here, what legal advice said, I don't know.
They said they didn't get any to the very end. He didn't listen.
Mr. Attorney, I guess what I'm saying is, as a matter of policy, will the police do this kind of thing? Shouldn't they be required to get independent advice? So that the court's time is not taken up with applications like this. But
isn't that what the Department of Prosecutions is for, though? The DP, isn't that what that department's for, though? Like, why didn't they go to the
by the state?
Well, look, they're probably that is probably a question better directed at the police minister or the police commissioner, and you may well have done that on Friday. About appropriate use of police resources, but I don't think I could comment on that without descending into the detail of the case.
All right. Now, this matter has flowed from the use of the fixated persons unit. And we investigated this over a couple of estimates, and it seems that since 2017, it's investigated over 200.
Oh, is it? I thought the DPP was for criminal, and this was a criminal matter. So that was... I don't really know how things work, so...
114 individuals. About half of those matters appear to be political referrals and referrals by ministers and MPs. And, of course, a number of individuals have ultimately been charged. Looking at this matter, though, although it's still before the courts, you've got a university student who's a producer of a satirical news program being prosecuted on the basis, as I understand it from Friday, that somehow his approaching Mr. Barilaro for comment, which is all on video, somehow harmed Mr. Barilaro's psychological well-being. Now, I can't see what Mr. Lanka did that's different to what the Chase has done or what news programs have done. Chasing people down the road with microphones shoved in their face, whatever the desirability of that, what Mr. Lanka has done doesn't seem to be that much different. Yet the police have felt this was so serious as to warrant a prosecution or intimidation and harassment of sort of 65 kilo university students apparently meant to have intimidated Mr. Barilaro by asking for comment.
Did you just hear that? Yes. He said half of the reports come from government. Yes, I heard him say that. 65 kilo university student versus Mr. Barilaro, 110 kilos. Whoops. Did you hear that? Did you hear what they said? I know, shoved in their face. So let's go back and have a listen to that.
Whatever the desirability of that, what Mr. Lanka has done doesn't seem to be that much different. Yet the police have felt this was so serious as to warrant a prosecution or intimidation and harassment of sort of 65 kilo university students apparently meant to have intimidated Mr. Barilaro by asking for comment. So, given
110 kilos.
what appears to be the unlikelihood of a successful outcome in that matter by the police, nevertheless, that's what's before the courts. You're the Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. Many women fleeing domestic violence get intimidated, stalked, harassed by their current or former intimate partner. But it doesn't seem very many of these fixated persons unit matters seem to have been deployed to assist them. So as the relevant minister...
Good point, though. And this is a really good point, because that's what we're saying, that it seems the politicians are using the fixated persons unit, but the people that need the help from being stalked and harassed aren't getting it.
What level of assurance can you give people fleeing DV to try that the resources of the state will actually give them the same protection that Mr. Barilaro seems to be receiving?
Well, again, I can't comment on the Barilaro Friendlyjordies case and the merits or otherwise of the police prosecution, because that matters before the court. I think it's probably a long bow to draw between that case and domestic violence complainants. Domestic violence complaints make up about 40% of the, as a rough ballpark figure, of the work of general duties officers in the New South Wales Police Force. Every police command, police district has a domestic violence liaison officer. Every region has a special, I'll paraphrase, a special force or a special unit to go after high-risk offenders. So more resources than ever of the New South Wales Police Force have been devoted to combating domestic violence to them.
Yes, but Braz got done. He got somebody approached him twice, and he had the fixated persons. 60%. Sure, the 60% of complaints have come from Braz.
Before, large campaigns with ADVO compliance checks, and you'll see that the numbers of those compliance checks have gone up much more rapidly than domestic violence prosecutions. Breach ADVO prosecutions have gone up much more rapidly than the underlying rate of domestic violence prosecutions. So there's plenty of evidence that the police are taking this very seriously. Can they do better? No doubt they can. The Auditor General at the moment is looking at police responses to domestic violence, and the government will certainly be interested in what the Auditor General has to say on that topic.
I can already tell you about that. Put the fixated persons unit into domestic violence, if they're so keen on protecting people.
So going forward, do you think that the same level of resourcing will be provided to victims of DV, that when they are being harassed and intimidated by their former partners, that they will get this kind of same level of protection?
Well, one of the offences for which prosecution has been increased significantly is stalking and intimidation, which I think is fairly substantial evidence that police are actively prosecuting domestic violence. In fact, others would criticise them for discretionary policing that goes too far. Others would say the fact that stalking and intimidation offences have gone up when others, recorded offences have gone up significantly when others haven't, is evidence of policing practice rather than underlying changes in the rate of domestic violence. So I'm confident that police are more and more prosecuting and protecting victim survivors, but no doubt there are matters that can be improved, procedures that can be improved, and that's why for an Auditor General inquiry at the moment.
Okay. As the first law officer, though, are you concerned that the resources of the state are being deployed against a journalist who has been criticising the government on the basis of its political agenda?
Well, that sort of implicit in that question is a supposition that the case against the journalist is unmeritorious, and that's a matter before the court.
Okay.
Hello, Will.
So once this matter's resolved, we may have to return to this for a discussion then.
It's only nice to see you, Ms. Delia, and the other witnesses. Thank you for coming today. Ms. Smith, did you...
That's the only nice thing you'll say.
It's
all down here.
Okay, that's a delightful time. Yep. Ms. Smith, did you provide advice to the police, or did your office provide advice to the police about their application for a suppression order in the Jordan Shanks matter?
I
I don't think I can comment on advice I've provided to my clients.
Well, I'm asking you if you provided advice, not the content of the advice.
I've certainly been involved in that matter, but if you wanted to ask questions about the advice, I would ask you to ask that of my clients.
Yeah, well, I'm asking when you were asked to provide the advice to your client. Your client in that case being New South Wales Police Force, Ms. Smith.
I'd ask you to ask questions about any advice I've provided to any clients, to the clients themselves, including matters relating to timing and content or
Well, Ms. Smith, I'm asking you, so when did you provide advice? Let me finish. When did you provide advice first provide advice to the New South Wales Police regarding the suppression order that they were seeking?
Oh, no, it's a simple yes or no, isn't it? I'm getting frustrated. Oh, boy. Oh.
In respect of Jordan Shanks.
As a legal practitioner, I'm bound by the legal professional rules. I'm bound by a duty of confidentiality
Come on.
and a duty to my client, so I can't answer questions about any advice I've provided to any client.
Ms. Smith, can you shed any light on whether or not the time frame the New South Wales Police have asserted, being that they first sought advice from you after they commenced proceedings, the suppression order proceedings, can you shed any light on whether or not that evidence from the New South Wales Police is accurate?
I am not familiar with the evidence that the police gave on Friday, but
I shouldn't laugh, but it's funny. It's a simple yes or no answer.
in any event, I can't comment on anything to do with advice I've provided to my client.
Attorney, have you satisfied yourself whether or not the police's position, which was that they didn't seek any legal advice until after the proceedings, the suppression order application had been filed, given that that advice was sought from your own department, have you satisfied yourself as to whether or not that police position is accurate?
Well, I haven't been asked to. I've had no involvement in the case. When you say advice was sought from my department, the Crown Solicitor operates independently of me and of public servants like Ms. Delia and
But why can't she answer, yes, I gave them advice? No, I didn't give them advice. The police stated in their evidence that they sought advice.
No, so as a practical matter, Ms. Smith is not someone who reports to me or is part of my department.
Well, I'm going to ask you now, is the police position that they first sought advice after commencing the suppression order proceedings, first sought advice from Crown Solicitors after that, is that accurate?
I don't know.
Will you make inquiries?
I will make inquiries.
There you go.
Just to let you.
There you go. I'll take that on notice. Wow. So what? So what have we learnt? Nothing. That nobody's taken responsibility for anything, right? Is that what we've learnt? I don't know. I can't recall. Oh, I had a video to show for about Gladys. I forgot to show it. We'll have to go back. We'll have to go back to ICAC. So anyway, and then I did ask the question at the start of the stream, but I'm going to ask at this point in a minute of the stream as well. But let's watch what the 7 News had to say about they called it Gladys grilling, the grilling of Gladys. Then I'm going to put a question to you. And I did ask it at the start. So let's have a look. This is 6 minutes. Channel 7
For a
News.
second dramatic day, Gladys has faced another public grilling at the ICAC. The Corruption Commission wanting answers over a private phone and an encrypted message service, and asking why the former Premier didn't put two and two together about her ex-boyfriend.
I can tell you that. Rose-coloured glasses. You look past indiscretions. We've learned that bros get special treatment. That is correct. Plan to create. No, I haven't.
Heading for her second and final day on the stand.
Do you have anything to say? A few words when I finish. Thank you.
Unsure what awaited inside. And despite some nervous moments waiting for the Assistant Commissioner to arrive, the former Premier today was feisty, in fight-back mode.
You're putting words in my mouth.
Far more defiant than Friday.
Was it affected by your personal feelings, Mr. Maguire?
No. Gosh.
And time and again warned by the Commissioner.
Mr. It would be better if you listen to the question and answer the question rather than looking around corners.
Oh, wow. She had to be told off by the... What? Did you hear that?
Gosh.
And time and again warned by the Commissioner.
Mr. It would be better if you listen to the question and answer the question rather than looking around corners.
Key questions focused on a period in July 2018 when Maguire found out he was the subject of an ICAC investigation.
Did you ultimately reflect on whether it would or might be a problem if Big Brother or some investigative agency had been or was listening to your calls to Mr. Maguire?
No, not really.
But just 4 days later, he texted girlfriend Gladys with this link to encrypted Chinese texting app WeChat, followed by the instruction, download the app. She replied, okay, I'll try. What about WhatsApp? That's easy too. He responded.
Oh, but she denied it. She was told off a bunch, was she? Wow. That's not going to go. You don't upset the Commissioner. Wowzers. I did see something on Twitter about people saying if the people that put flowers outside her office when she resigned could get their money back. I know, girlfriend Gladys, right?
You need to get a private phone.
Do you have a recollection of Mr. Maguire suggesting to you that you need to get a private phone?
Well, not until you've showed me this. But I never did.
Maguire referenced WeChat's Green Man logo, explaining the difference between normal text and encrypted ones.
They can read text, but not the little green man. It leaves no trace to set it down. Do you know what Mr. Maguire was referring to by the little green man?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Well, as I said, that we know that he's subpoenaed the Department of Land Management and the Department of Premier Cabinet.
The Premier insists it was just for privacy, not to evade any ICAC intercepts.
I can't speculate as to what was going through his head.
Precisely whether you ever put two and two together.
No.
On Friday, the question centred on her 7-year close and personal relationship with the disgraced MP and any potential conflicts of interest. Today,
They had a 7-year relationship and... All right.
for hours on why she didn't suspect Daryl was dodgy.
You must accept, mustn't you, that Mr. Maguire told you that he had made representations on behalf of one or more property developers.
Certainly, my radar didn't go up at all. He's someone I'd known for a long time and I trusted him.
They had phone taps and evidence of him telling her that he was expecting a commission of $1.5 million over a Badgerys Creek deal.
They've got evidence. Wowzers. How did she get...
That he'd been attempting to have a road moved on behalf of one businesswoman and about how he'd lobbied property developers. But she insisted she had no idea or suspicion that he could ever be corrupt.
In the face of all of that, did you suspect that Mr. Maguire may have been engaged in corrupt conduct?
I didn't.
Why not?
He kept
Oh, I like him. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? He's your hero, Rufus. It was straight, like there was no gap. It was straight in.
That Mr. Maguire may have been engaged in corrupt conduct.
I didn't.
Why not?
he kept pushing, she pushed back.
No. I didn't feel I had anything or knew anything. I didn't even have last names. I knew nothing. Is there anything? Did I know anything? Do I need to report anything? Of course all of that went through my mind. Of course all of that did.
If she suspected anything, she was obliged to tell ICAC.
When you rejected, were you concerned that the cloud which Mr. Maguire was under might shift to you?
No,
Because
because I knew in my heart that I had never, ever done anything wrong.
They also revisited Friday's bombshell moment, her boast of getting the Wagga Hospital cash in 5 minutes.
I just spoke to Don and I said, just put the 140 in the budget. He goes, no worries. He just does what I ask him to.
Oh dear. I know nothing.
Confirming today it was actually already in the budget.
And I would never have been able to pluck that money out of thin air over in 5 minutes. That's just absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Then, after 10 days and 4 hours, the hearing came to an end.
on our adjournment.
No fanfare as the Assistant Commissioner retired, leaving the former Premier with the last word.
The last month has been an extremely difficult one, and now I intend to get on with my life. And I just again want to thank everybody for their support.
The final stage, submissions will be made and a report written. It could be months away.
And Chris Reason is with me now. Chris, the hearing is over. So what happens now?
Yeah, once those submissions are in, Mark, the Commissioner, Grieth McCall, will pull her report together. It's likely to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months before she tables her findings and or recommendations. What can the outcomes be for Gladys Berejiklian? Well, there are no criminal charges in play here. These are all code of conduct issues, really. And arguably, she's already suffered the consequences. She's not left a job, and her name and reputation have taken a massive hit. You Google corruption and Premier, and her name now comes up. But it could get worse.
Google corruption and Premier. We'll have to do that, hey? We'll have to Google corruption and Premier. Everybody, open up your web browsers and type in corruption and Premier. I thought ICAC could actually recommend criminal or for a criminal investigation.
ICAC could find that they didn't believe her evidence, that she did breach public trust, did have a clear conflict of interest, and did allow corrupt conduct from her boyfriend, Darryl Maguire. Ms. Berejiklian knows that the outcome of that final report will play a massive impact on her future life and career, Mark.
One big report, Chris. Thank you.
Look at the smirk on her face.
Good afternoon, everybody. As I said, the last month has been an extremely difficult one, and I just want to thank the public for their amazing support. And I stand by what I've always said, that every decision I made in terms of the public office I held was in the best interests of the community and the public. I stand by that today, stronger than ever. And I just want to say to everybody that it's been my honour and privilege to serve you in my role in public life. And of course, again, every decision I took was in the public's best interests. I don't want to say too much more than that at this stage. Just to say, obviously, what's occurred to me is a difficult situation, but I know many people do it tough in the community. And now I intend to get on with my life. And I just again want to thank everybody for their support. But my position hasn't changed. Every day that I've dealt with the public every day that I've made decisions has been in their best interests of the public, of the government, of the community. It's been my honour and privilege to serve the community in that way. Obviously, I've had to fulfil my obligations to the Integrity Agency, and I do so respectfully. It's their job to look at these matters. But as far as I'm concerned, I've always put the public first. That's always been the case. It remains the case. And again, thank you very much, everybody. I can't really say any more than that.
Thank you. Why are you suddenly hungry? It's we need we need a musical number with Gladys face mapped on. Oh dear me. So that's how the media, that's how Channel 7 reported that. So now let's get on to Cleo, because it would seem the police are actually getting let me ask you a question. All right. So I've been talking about my issues with them. So here's a question. Can you make somebody love you? So if somebody has rejected you 3 times, right? So this isn't about me. If somebody has rejected you, you've gone back to somebody 3 times, and each time they've said, I don't love you. Are you crazy to not show interest in anyone else because you want that one person? Can you make somebody fall in love with you? Or do you give up? Question. And then we'll get to Cleo. Did you get that question? So you probably know the person that I'm talking about. So I got dumped for somebody to go back to their ex. The ex has rejected them 3 times that they haven't loved them. And that person has now come back to me and said, has said they are in love with this person that doesn't love them, and they're going to pursue them. So that's the question. Can you make somebody fall in love with you? Or if somebody has rejected you 3 times, are you stupid to try again? No, there wasn't will. No, there's never been. It's not me. And I was essentially told that the person who had told me that they loved me didn't really love me and doesn't want anything to do with me. And so I told them that that's fine, but now they're just following up on me because they're concerned about me. So it's really bizarre. So anyway. What a complicated thing. Anyway, because I sent an email. I just sent a really long email titled Goodbye. And said, hey, I'm not going to contact you again, and how that person had let me down by saying that they would be my friend, and I had a few issues I needed a friend for, and they weren't there. And look, I think the problem is build yourself. So anyway, and then, I've just got a message through to say that they're going to call me tomorrow. And I've just said, I'm going no contact. I want to move on with life. Now you're just somebody that I used. Anyway, that's what I wanted to know. I don't believe that you can make somebody fall in love with you. If you've been rejected 3 or 4 times, I think it's time. Oh, no, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. No, this isn't me. This is the person that I was with. I said to them, you can't make somebody love you. And sometimes you have to love somebody enough to let them go or to walk away. But it was funny because when the said person was with me and was really happy, the person wanted him back. And then when they got him back, they didn't want him. Funny that, eh? Anyway, but now just falling the never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna turn around and anyway. But I'm also just finding it very interesting for somebody that said that they had no feelings for me. He now wants to give me a call tomorrow to see how I am. So you're still not clear, Kelly. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. Your husband chased me. Yeah. Cool. Nice. Anyway. Plus, I mentioned I was getting on with my life, and I've just got all these really amazing things happening in my life, and now suddenly I'm interesting again. I was boring yesterday. But anyway. All right, let's get on with Cleo. Let's get on to something a little bit better. And I'm on night shift, so anyway, I've got to stay up. I'm up all night. So Cleo Smith detectives work on opportunistic abduction theory as they track down blowhole campers. So, well, the thing is, you were all intelligent because I actually told the same. I actually said, I actually told the person that you can't make somebody fall in love with you, and that sometimes you need to love enough to walk away and get on with your life. Anyway, detectives are inching closer to identifying every person in the area when Cleo Smith disappeared from a remote area. So remember, she's been missing nearly 15 days. Is it 15, 16 days? Been gone for a while. Blowhole campers. It doesn't sound better, does it? And the communications I've had with said person actually contradict each other. I'd like to actually put all the communications together in one long email, and you'd be really confused. Anyway, Cleo Smith. We're on to Cleo Smith. Not my problems. It's 14 days, is it, Cal? Okay. So, Acting Police Commissioner Cole Blanche told ABC Radio police were getting closer and closer, and we've tracked down people that we didn't know. We've found them, and we have eliminated them. And that's our focus at the moment, eliminate as many people as possible. 4-year-old Cleo vanished from her family's tent at the Blowholes campsite about 80 kilometres north of Carnarvon, so October 16. No, they haven't found any more clues as far as I'm aware. So they said the forensic work on the ground involved creating a detailed map of every inch of the area using drones, aircraft, satellite technology to look for any disturbances in the sand or any other potential evidence. Now we're at a stage where we need to forensically go over that ground inch by inch and see what disturbances might be in nearby areas for any sort of evidence which may give an inkling as to what happened. It could be tire tracks, it could be a sleeping bag, it could be anything. He said police were in the process of securing satellite images captured over the area around that time, and we're trawling through thousands of lines of data captured by mobile towers in the area. Hello, Jenna. It is an investigative function for police to find out who was in the area at the time and perhaps the direction of the movement of the tower. Yeah, see, I don't know why no one heard anything. And wouldn't, if she'd woken up, wouldn't she have screamed? While there has been focus placed on the mystery car seen turning off the Blowholes Road towards Carnarvon at 3:30 a.m. the morning Cleo disappeared, other roads are also being investigated. Acting Commissioner Cole Blanche said there were many dirt roads and other routes which could have allowed an abductor to avoid detection. The Quabba Blowholes is a very remote area. You would need vehicles that are capable of doing that. You would be looking for a four-wheel drive type vehicle, he said. But absolutely, there are ways to go that aren't on the main road. While police believe it's likely to have been an opportunistic abduction, Cole Blanche said they were yet to rule out the possibility Cleo had been watched or followed at the campsite or even earlier. One of the most important things in an investigation like this is to eliminate everyone that was present at the campsite, he said. We need to know everyone who was there, and then we work out our movements, what they are doing, take their DNA, their fingerprints, and that's all for elimination. We are left with a group of people that we put focus on. The acting commissioner conceded that as time goes by, it's the name of the place. This is what it is. This is the Blowholes campsite. That's it. It's just nothing. I don't know why or how it got called the Blowholes. I don't know. Maybe there's some well, unless it was somebody. Well, I mean, we then get back to Jenna, whether it was somebody that she knew. That would be the only reason why she wouldn't be screaming. Correct? So keeping hopes high was not easy. It is difficult to keep up hope. There is doubt about it the longer it goes, but I know those investigators are still focused absolutely on this case, trying to bring Cleo home. This has absolutely hit the heart of everyone in Western Australia, the Australian community, and it's gone international. Oh, that's right. Blowholes. It's a rock formation. Yeah. There is something we really need to solve. I look at my phone every morning hoping we've had an answer. It hasn't come, and I hope it does. The acting commissioner also shed light on the makeup of the 100-officer task force Rodeo, which is investigating Cleo's disappearance. We've had nearly 50 officers up in Carnarvon, up at the Blowholes, working every day. We have another 50 down in Perth. And that ranges from detectives to analysts, forensic specialists. We're going to send the TRG up there to have a closer look and do some line searches. We've got drone pilots, we've got air wing. We basically have most of the police force, specialist services and detectives working on it. Detective Sergeant Wild revealed that on the night the family arrived at the campsite, they did not have any direct interactions with other campers. They had a quiet night around the campfire, and that was it, he said. We know they got there on Friday night, and it was getting dark, so there would have been limited opportunity for somebody to observe Cleo at that time. He said the video on either Ellie Smith or Jake's Glidden phone corroborated the fact Cleo was at the campsite on the night in question. We've got some evidence off the parents' phone, which obviously we can geolocate and geolocate and those types of things, which puts them at their location at the time with footage with Cleo on it. Superintendent Wild said police dogs had not yet been deployed at the site, but they could be used at a future date. They've eliminated, I think they said there's 100 around the area that they've spoken to, Jenna. Well, that's right. I mean, if they drugged her, then it was opportunity. It wasn't opportunistic. It was targeted. So the other thing is that they were saying is that this would have been a horrible job. That they've collected more than 50 cubic meters of rubbish, so they're going through rubbish bins as well, from all the bins around the area. So they've sifted through rubbish collected from roadside bins. So that they could do that. They've got. I'm not putting your comments hilarious, Will. So that's really, yeah. But anyway. So, I mean, the other thing the police have come out and said is that people need to lay off apparently the parents have been getting a really hard time, and we shouldn't be speculating anything like that. So for me, until we know more, there's no evidence, and the police have come out and said they're not suspects, and so they would. And I'm certain they would have investigated them, or they would have done something by now if they were. Oh, that's true. It might have been true, but yeah. Okay, so I've just got one more thing to talk about. And this is the spat between Scomo and Macron. Yeah. You know, the French versus Ausspat. There's been lots of footage on Twitter of all the world leaders, ignoring Scomo. Yeah, evidence is the key. There's no evidence. There's been no evidence. They've said, the police have come out and said there's no evidence that the parents are involved. I mean, they've gone through the house, so we just have to believe them. So he's been accused of lying to the French. So French President Macron says Scott Morrison lied to him. Welcome. Well, you know what? At least he lies to at least he's consistent with the lying. Let me just tell you. I mean, Scomo lies to us too. The fallout from Prime Minister Scott Morrison's decision to scrap a French submarine deal in favour of a nuclear option from the US or UK has continued into this week's meeting of world leaders in Glasgow. French President Emmanuel Macron says Mr. Morrison lied to him about his intentions with the deal and that his trust in Australia had been deeply damaged. And US President Joe Biden, he's doing his best to distance himself from what he called Mr. Morrison's clumsy move as the... So not even Biden's... and US President Joe Biden is doing his best to distance himself from what he described as Mr. Morrison's clumsy move. That fella done under. But Joe knows Scotty's name. Yes. Scotty for marketing. As the federal opposition says it's time for the Prime Minister to isn't he that bloke? Isn't he that fellow from down under? Isn't that what Biden called him? That fellow from down under? Mr. Morrison has acknowledged the decision caused anger, but says it was necessary and he did not mislead the French. So, all right. So what was this all about? So when and how to upgrade Australia's ageing colony-class submarines was first floated back in 2009, when the then Labor government in 2013 announced whatever would come next would be built in South Australia. Fast forward a couple of years, and after a lot of discussions and debate, bids from Japan, Germany and French were all put forward to build the next fleet, with the French awarded the deal. The $50 billion agreement for the French company DCNS, now called Naval Group, to build 12 new subs in Adelaide was announced in 2016 under then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Under the plan, the French subs would have been delivered in 2030 and operational between then and 2034. Australia's new nuclear submarines are unlikely to be in the water between 2040. Now, an estimates committee with Penny Wong, what's her name? She asked, if the Collins classes are going to finish in 2020 or 2030 and the nuclear submarines aren't going to be here before 2040, what happens in the 10 years? What happens in the 10 years? Because there's going to be 10 years where we have no subs. Although Mr. Macron asserts he was caught off guard by the announcement, it was well known the submarine contract was in turbulent waters. The $50 billion deal announced by Mr. Turnbull was now being estimated by Defence to cost an extra $40 billion. And that was before an even single part had even begun to be made. As early as 2019, the government was publicly discussing its frustration with Naval Group and quietly discussing exercising an option in the contract to terminate the deal and make a break payment to Naval Group. Mr. Morrison publicly warned the French government in June this year the government was deeply unhappy by the lack of progress on the submarine fleet. The Prime Minister said he had candid talks with both Mr. Macron and Naval Fleet and told the company it must meet a September deadline to submit reworked designs for submarine fleet as its existing plans were too expensive. Days earlier, defence officials said they were already looking at alternatives, although it insisted the government was committed to the French design. At the same time, Mr. Macron was signalling to Australia how important it was to him to keep the contract, saying it was a pillar of the partnership between France and Australia and the relationship of confidence between the two countries. So it was clear the diplomatic damage from dumping the French submarines would be immense. In the end, it was an awkwardly named acronym that sank the submarine deal. An early morning joint press conference in mid-September, US President Joe Biden, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and Mr. Morrison. It's funny how they've got US President Joe Biden, UK Prime Minister, and Mr. Morrison revealed the new AUK-US security partnership. The linchpin of the new agreement was the dumping of the French submarine deal in favour of Australia acquiring nuclear submarines from either the UK or the US. Mr. Macron said he was blindsided by the announcement and responded with fury. He recalled France's ambassador to the US and Australia, an extraordinary diplomatic rebuke of the country's close allies. France had never previously recalled its ambassador to the United States. France's foreign minister labelled the cancellation of the contract a stab in the back and said trust between France and Australia was broken. But what exactly France knew and when the country was told about the cancellation of the submarine project is now somewhat disputed. On Morrison's telling, Australia had been expressing its discontent with the French contract for some time, and the scrapping of the contract should not have been a surprise. He said the French response to Australian concerns at the time indicated they clearly understood the depth of the problem and contract faced. However, crucially, Mr. Morrison said he could not reveal to Mr. Macron or any other French official that Australia was in talks with the US and UK due to security concerns. Some, such as former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, argued that relying on the French to pick up hints that the contract might be dumped is not good enough, and Mr. Morrison should have been more direct. Mr. Turnbull suggests that if Australia really wanted nuclear submarines, the French could have been involved, given the French submarines Australia was buying were retrofitted from a nuclear model. President Macron's comments yesterday suggested he would agree. Asked if he felt Mr. Morrison had lied to him, he did not mince his words. I don't think I know. Well, you know what, Mr. Macron? Every time Mr. Morrison opens his mouth, I don't think I know either. But the news say nothing but, oh, of course. So anyway, that's just what's been reported. He was actually taught, he did actually, I know that an ABC reporter did actually interview him. But, yeah. Look, I don't know, but, you know, all I know was a retrofitting as nuclear, well, to diesel doesn't make sense. Well, see, and isn't it expensive? I mean, if they were already nuclear, why wouldn't you have kept them nuclear? Wouldn't that have been cheaper to keep them by what they were? I don't know. So anyway, no? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Refueling, okay, with French nukes. Okay. See, I know nothing. I just read what they... we'd have to send them... Oh, would we? We'd have to send them to France every 10 years. What? How is it? But what is it? I don't know what the capacity is in arms. I don't know. And that's what we haven't been told. So... this is what someone's done. So this is Tim Smith's office. All right. All right. So it says, look at this. Look what someone's done. Rest in peace, Tim Smith's career. Too soon? Nah. And it was shared by the parody account. It says, WIP, Tim Smith's career. Too soon? Nah. See if I can show it bigger, make it bigger for you. Yeah, I think they've been sitting on their hands for too long. So Tim Smith is the Victorian politician who just got done being nearly three times over the limit. And he's lost his license, and he's been told that the leader doesn't want him contesting the next election. So, but anyway, there you go. I've just read what was put into the national broadcaster, so I'm trying not to speculate or anything. I'm just looking at it. Right. The only thing about Scomo being in Glasgow is that we have Barnaby. Yeah. All right, this is a scene. Let me show you this. So this is Scomo doing his speech. Have a look at all the people. Look, it says okay, Morrison's speech at COPE 26 explained. He wasn't yelling, he was echoing. He was echoing because the room was large and largely empty. Thanks SBS for the shots.
Optimism. As we gather here, some optimism but plenty of skepticism too among COP delegate. Optimism. As we gather here, some optimism but plenty of skepticism too among COP delegate.
So he had nobody there. Nobody. Oh dear, must have been a stampede for the exits. Oh dear, there you go. Well, that's true. Oh dear. And apparently Biden fell asleep, apparently, according to Sky News. Wake up, Joe. Biden appears to fall asleep. Wake up, Joe. Scomo is a-coming. Wake up, Joe. Scomo needs you. Wake up, Joe. You're missing all the fun now. Wake up, Joe. Scomo's through. Sorry to the Wiggles for butchering their song. Do Australians like their Prime Minister? No, we don't like our no, we don't like our Prime Minister. Oh, some people do. We call him Scomo or Slow-Mo or Scotty from marketing. Actually, somebody did a video of all the names. It must be time to pull that out again. Scotty doesn't know. It was a song. I can't remember what it was. Song about Scomo. Here we go. This is called, oh, there's heaps of them. There's a whole lot of them. So this is called the Scomo hashtag song. Okay, so these are all the hashtags that we have, that he has been called. The Aussie PM's hashtag song. Let's not. Just one song.
A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. I would never
Right.
smell it sweet.
Okay, let's get this.
Rose by any other name would smell as sweet. I would never call this guy a deadbeat. He's known as Smoko, Promo, Slow-Mo, FOMO, Scroto, Domo, Stromo, Stuntmo, Scammo, Smirko, Scooter, Smuggo, Scomo, Shitmo. Scotty from Marketing, Scotty from Bunning, Scotty from Carpeting, Scotty does nothing, Scotty the misogynist, Scotty the announcer, Scotty the rapist, protector, Scotty from QAnon, Scotty the faker, Scotty the gaslighter, Scotty the traitor, Scotty from announcement, Scotty from photo op, Scotty the coward, Scotty from cover up, Scotty never helped, Scotty the fuckwit, Scotty the bully, Scotty the hypocrite, Scotty from damage control, Prime Minister, Scotty the protocol freak, Prime Sinister, Scotty the savior, Scotty from Horizon, Brian, Scotty the Antichrist, fake Christian, Scotty from Gilead, Scotty the chosen one, Scutmo, Shaddy Mo, Skull, Mold, Scum, Moses, Scomatos, Cat, Scomo, Dio, Bullshit Boy, Scotty the liar, Cook from Cook, Liar from the Shire, Morrison Fire, Morrison Failure, Aloha, Scott Black from Daughter, Blame, Slogan, Bogan, Part-Time PM, Lazy Scott, Get Fucked from Nelligan, Flock Morrison, Scotty the Cute Jumpers, COVID, Scotty the Prick, Scotty Blah Blah, Morrison Outbreak, Morrison Lockdown, Scotty Goose Factor, Scotty the Clown, Chicken and Cubby Man, Barbecue, Curry Man, Beer Man, Barman, Dairy Man, Farmer, Baker, Builder, Pilot, Dog Truck Driver, Barista, Tired, Catman, Mapman, Bagman, Backman, Lapman, High-Vis and Hard Hatman, Vaxman, Oilman, Flagman, Roadman, Creeper, Politics, Out of Sportman, Merc and Mirrors, Age Care, the Man, Crane Tank, Army, Robo, Deathman, Jerk with the smirk, I've learned not to care, man, backstabbing, hand grabbing, going nowhere, man, Scotty the Dictator, Scotty no friends, Scotty the Observer, Scotty from Engadine, Scotty the Monster, Scotty the Loser, Scotty the Child Abuser, Milkshake Morrison, Scotty the Leaner, Wombat, Morris Gum, Mr. Spoiker, Scotty the Simp, Job Shirker, Clock Mo, QAnon BM, Scotty must go.
Anyway, that's something that's done. It's funny how Mr. Speaker made in it, because he always says Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, that's just some of the stuff. But yeah, we called him Scomo. So anyway. Anyway, on that note, I need to go. I need to leave for work in about 45 minutes. And I need to have a very quick nap. But one more question before I go. Here's the final question of the night. So the person that wants nothing to do with me is supposed to ring me tomorrow. 1, do I answer the call? 2, do I ignore it? Plop, the number says physics down under. So that's a no. All this true. Yeah, lots of videos. Because like see ya, Cal. Oh, it's just funny. I just find it really interesting. As soon as you tell somebody that you're living your best life, suddenly they want to know you again. Say this is their new number. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it depends when he rings. If he rings me before 1 o'clock, I won't answer it because ignore planetary says ignore because it goes into it won't get answered. But yeah, don't answer. Okay. The people have spoken. I am not answering. Depends if I'm bored enough. I don't know. But well, I did, Kellyanne. I did say I wanted to do my own thing. I titled the email goodbye from the ex, Graham, who dumped me to go back to their ex, who got dumped by their ex. And has since told me that they want to win their ex back. Although their ex has told them 4 times they don't love them. So I'm saying that I sent an email. I said goodbye and that I'm not going to contact them again. And then suddenly they've said, I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. Because a couple of days ago I was actually I think you should accept the no for the answer. Yep. So I then did a couple of days ago I needed somebody to talk to and nobody was answering their phone, and out of desperation I rang them because I was really depressed. His name isn't Daryl, is it? No, it's not actually. No. Yeah. So anyway, thank you everybody. Yeah, but as I said, you can't make somebody love you that doesn't love you. So, but the last words to me was that there was nothing there for me, but now they're concerned about me. So, oh, you got rejected 3 times by one ex, short order cook. 3 times by one ex. But he still wants to win them back. So anyway. All right. So I'll see you all again. Oh, I'm hoping to be on tomorrow. We'll see how I'm going to put I will put up timestamps so you can come back and watch all the stuff. But anyway, so thank you everybody for your help. I've got my answer. So you just look, I think you know what, short order cook, I think he is a bit lost, to be honest with you. And I've been there. I've been lost myself. So I'm sort of like sympathetic to them a bit, but I've been a bit too sympathetic. So I've now said I don't have time for these games. Yeah, so because I was helping with their CV and everything, and I've just said you're on your own now. So I've sort of I've shut the door, but now they want to get back in. But as I said, apparently there was nothing there, but suddenly they're very concerned. So who knows? Yeah. All right, guys, I will catch you all again later, and they possibly could be watching at this point. So hello. But yeah, anyway, I'll catch you all. So thank you all for watching. I could tell you more, but yeah, because technically they don't want to talk to me or see me because apparently I ooze attraction. Oh. So anyway. All right. Good night, everybody. I'll catch you again soon.